Democrat Dean Phillips is campaigning in New Hampshire as Biden skips the Granite State's upcoming primary. Our next guest helped the Bernie Sanders campaign sail to victory in the state in 2016 and 2020, and he's now joined Phillips as his presidential campaign advisor. Jeff Weaver joins us now. Jeff, thanks for being with us on the program. Seems like a big moment for Dean Phillips, New Hampshire, not only because Joe Biden's not really participating, not throwing all of his weight into New Hampshire, but it seems the kind of state that also has shown an independent streak to go away from whatever is suggested by the Democratic National Committee.
Yeah, well, let me say this. You say Joe Biden has not put his weight behind it, but they're spending millions of dollars here. They're filling people's mailboxes with mail. They're on digital. They're making phone calls all through an out-of-state super PAC. So, they say they're not here, but they are here, and they're very, very afraid that they're going to lose here. And so, this campaign is moving forward. The excitement on the ground is growing. The crowds are growing. And we think we're going to surprise here in New Hampshire. It's not clear we're going to beat them outright, but I think we're going to do much better than people think. It's going to spark a movement across this country to get a nominee on the Democratic side who can beat Donald Trump.
Here's the current polling, it looks like, from New Hampshire. Joe Biden at 58%, Dean Phillips just at about 10%, Marianne Williamson at 5%. Can I go back to this scenario you're pointing out to us about how much weight the Biden campaign is putting into New Hampshire? I know you advised Bernie Sanders. We mentioned that in the past. And he's certainly dealt with a lot of things behind the scenes that cut his campaigns at the Achilles or at the kneecap or whatever it may be. One could argue anti-democratic measures to really coalesce behind Hillary Clinton at one time or Joe Biden later. Are you experiencing anything similar with Dean Phillips?
Well, yes, we have, and it's been widely reported. There's been an effort to keep Dean Phillips off the ballot in a number of states, and in fact, this has resulted in Florida in the primary being canceled altogether. Obviously, with the intent to just award those delegates to Joe Biden without a single Florida voter having an opportunity to vote. It's happened in North Carolina. They tried to do it in Massachusetts. Thankfully, the Secretary of State overturned that. They're trying to do it in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Democratic Party acting in a very undemocratic way. But let's talk about what's really important in this election, and that is for those folks who don't want Donald Trump to become president. I know there are many conservatives who don't want Donald Trump to become president. We have got to make sure that the election in November is not Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Now, I know many of you in New Hampshire, and I want to speak specifically to New Hampshire independents. Many of you have looked to Nikki Haley as a potential way to beat Donald Trump. Her polling in New Hampshire is going way down. It is very unlikely she's going to prevail here, and that means her campaign will probably be over after South Carolina. The only way that we are going to keep this from being a Trump-Biden race is to defeat President Biden in the primary. The polling you showed earlier is somewhat out of date. There's polling that shows Dean Phillips at 28% and rising. And I would say, look, Dean Phillips has a better chance at this point of beating Joe Biden than Nikki Haley does of beating Donald Trump. So I encourage independents in New Hampshire who are very powerful in this election to come over to the Dean Phillips side.
Well, I think your point is well taken that it doesn't look good for Joe Biden to beat Donald Trump. So who can beat Donald Trump? By the way, you just got this endorsement. I want to play it for everybody real quick. Here's Andrew Yang.
I am proud to endorse tonight as the next president of the United States, three-term congressman from Minnesota, Dean Phillips. The president is 81 years old. It's going to be tough to reinvent Grandpa. He's not going to become a new candidate. You know what I mean?
Quickly, Jeff, we've heard Andrew Yang make his case. I've heard you this morning make your case for the alternative that would be Dean Phillips. But I have to ask you, now you've worked on Bernie Sanders, you've worked on Dean Phillips, and you've laid out for us here this morning the anti-democratic measures that have been put into place to stop your candidate. What are we supposed to make of a party and an administration that actively talks about democracy being on the ballot while undercutting democracy even in their own primary?
Well, look, the antidote to anti-democracy is democracy. And so I encourage people in New Hampshire and all across this country to get out and vote. If folks come out in New Hampshire, and again, I want to make a special appeal to independents here in New Hampshire. If you come out and vote for Dean Phillips and we surprise here on Tuesday, we'll go on to South Carolina and Michigan, and this will be a real race. People will have a real choice, and we can nominate a Democrat who can defeat Donald Trump.
All right. I heard you make your case once again, but still no answer to why we continue to be preached to the fact that democracy is at threat while the Democratic Party doesn't want to participate in democracy.
Let me just say this, Will. The antidote to anti-democracy is not less democracy. And that's, some in the Democratic Party seem to think that you fight authoritarianism with less democracy. And I just disagree.
All right, Jeff. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Take care. Thank you.
Right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.